Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Let's Talk Mahal. This time we have Abid Omar with us, and of course, Davar that we'll be talking to. Mr. Abid Omar is the founder of PAQI, Pakistan Air Quality Initiative, and we'll be discussing smog and masks with him and how to combat bad air quality. Abid has, of course, been highlighting Pakistan's air quality problem throughout the country, and through PAQI, he provides crowdsourced, community-driven air quality data. And as we all know, Pakistan has a dearth of what's it called, or like Pakistan has a lack of reliable data of any sort. So, like what PAQI is doing is very valuable for us. Davar, if you'd like to take it from here.
Yeah, I think the first thing that we want to hear is how did you get into this, Abid? Like air quality, particularly in a country where not many people knew about these issues, and also uh, beyond the period of what we call the Lahore smog. I think before 2016, even people who've been in the field of environment and climate change for a bit, they really had no idea. So, what convinced you to try this out? What sort of encouraged you into this particular space?
It's very easy to be a change maker. All you have to do is to be curious about something. And I was just curious about what's in the air, what's out there. And we can't really see what is in the air. I mean, you can see when it's foggy, you can see when it's misty, you can kind of sense that it's polluted, but you can't really get a handle on what is out there. And my curiosity about this stemmed from the fact that I used to live in Beijing, China, which for a long time was known as the world's most polluted city. And even over there, like if you go back a couple of years, like in Lahore, nobody really acknowledged air pollution or understood it was an issue. And it was exactly the same in Beijing, where you could see that it's polluted, you could smell that it's polluted, you couldn't see the sun in the sky, everything was yellow and hazy and foggy. And that's what people used to say over there, that it's foggy. And this can't be air pollution, this can't be smog, it's just a nice winter fog. And that's exactly the conversation that even a lot of people have today in Lahore, that what a nice beautiful day it is, it's foggy and it's so romantic to be out in it. What changed in Beijing for me and for a lot of other people was that the US consulate over there started tweeting hourly air quality data through their reference guided monitor they installed at the consulate. And Twitter having a very limited reach in China, so only some people like me, foreigners, expats who were living there, would actually look at that Twitter feed. And when I shared those numbers that I'd see, which were very frequently hazardous air quality, with my colleagues over there, they would all say that this is fog and not smog. And that led me to think about, if these numbers, and of course, just to add that, we know that fast forward a couple of years, the Chinese government really took notice of this issue and has installed thousands of reference standard monitors across the country, not just in Beijing. And they have done a lot of actions to address the problem, where Beijing is no longer even in the topmost 100 polluted cities. Whereas in Lahore, we're still stuck with this conversation, that is this fog, is this smog? What do these numbers actually mean? Because, these low-cost monitors that we have put up, along with people like yourself, like Davar was kind enough to host one of those monitors early on, and actually has helped spread a lot of these monitors in Lahore, and also in other parts of Pakistan and other cities, is that we're like, okay, what are these monitors? What is this data? What does it mean? How can it be polluted? Because, it is just fog after all. And that's where the conversation actually stands till today, that we're still trying to clear the air about what is out there.
And
Okay,
interestingly,
I'm just gonna commend you on the very clever pun that you just used. We're just trying to clear the air about what's still out there. Good job.
And like we so
Thank
far
you. Thank you.
whatever we've done also gets the frequent dilemma that skepticals in the public sector, particularly our EPAs and the government, does not believe in the data. So we're left with the whole, confusion that we're doing this work, and in a lot of cases, the work is beneficial for us, but it really takes a lot of patience that you're doing this for the cities in general, or you're thinking very big picture. So in that regard, what do you see that is, has there been any improvement since you've been doing this? What is the situation right now? What could be improved? And given as a sort of a practitioner and also someone who depends on this data on a daily basis, what is one thing that you would want to share with the audience, that how can we sort of basically be prepared in terms of what the air quality is out in the air? How do we regulate our lives accordingly?
You see that there's a lot of questions that you put in there, but let's start with the data itself. Like, these are some of the fundamental issues before we address what we can do to help protect ourselves. Fundamentally, there's a lot of questions around reliability. Is this data any good? Can we use it? Can we make certain actions based on that? So that conversation is somewhat different in the sense that, what is the purpose of that data? Like, who exactly are you who's doing the monitoring, and for what reasons? Are you doing regulatory grade monitoring, which is then dependent on, uh, just checking, are we here? It seems to be glitching. Okay, good. Sorry.
Yes,
So
sir.
if you're talking about regulatory grade monitoring, which is mandated by the environmental protection laws in the various provinces, then that's within the jurisdiction of the environmental protection departments. And the law over there very clearly states exactly what you're supposed to monitor, which is when it comes to emissions, it's, in ambient air quality, you have particulate matter, nitrogen oxide emissions, sulfur oxides, ozone, carbon monoxide. And not only those key criteria pollutants are identified, but also their measuring methods are identified. Also, their safe limits are identified. And these measurements don't just end at ambient air quality. You also have to look at industrial emissions, and how do you measure the emissions from one factory? What kind of stack emissions monitoring it's called, that you put in the chimney of a power plant or of a cement plant. So those standards exist, and those are driven by law. Then you have also different kind of emissions monitoring. Let's talk about vehicle fitness. So that comes under a different jurisdiction and regulated by different laws about exactly what you're supposed to monitor, how you're supposed to monitor. And let's say you're I mentioned cement factory and power plants. You will most definitely have inside your premises, you will know exactly, if you're a power plant, what is the content of the gases that are coming out, because that's how you fine tune your power generation as well. And also power plants are at least mandated. I don't know if they're doing it by international norm, to do what is called fence line monitoring, that you monitor the air between from where the power plant is located and the nearest communities, in terms of where the wind direction might blow the pollution. So that falls into the realm of ambient air pollution. So there's many realms around it. And these are all very technical and all very sophisticated, and all actually very expensive equipment that one is looking at. And to supplement all of this is a relatively new field, which is of low cost air quality monitoring. So instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars worth, tens of millions of dollars, you're just spending a few hundred or a few $1,000s to set up monitors, which makes them affordable for people to buy them and put them up in their homes, as individuals, as corporates, as schools, as offices. And a $300-400 monitor is roughly the price of a mid-range cell phone. So they're not so expensive, but once you get to those kind of price points, you're also looking at a difference in the type of data that you're getting. So you're no longer in the realm of being 99.9% or 98% reliable. You might only be 90% reliable or 80% reliable. And then other things also come in. Are you putting those monitors really for ambient air pollution? Or are you going to put them in the middle of a traffic intersection? Because then that becomes monitoring of traffic emissions. So given with all of this background, and given the lack of data available in Pakistan from our authorities or from other institutes, research institutes or universities or anyone else who could be monitoring with this expensive equipment, this kind of data is the best thing that we have today. And this is exactly the data which tells us that, this is not fog, this is smog. We're only measuring particulate matter right now, but we have also a lot of other surrogate studies coming from satellite data, which shows you that every pollutant that you're looking at is off the charts in Pakistan, not just in Lahore, but also in Karachi, also in Islamabad, also in Peshawar. So it's pretty much bad all around. And coming back to whether to trust the data or not, well, don't trust the data. Set up your own monitor. Get involved in this program. Get the government or get a university or some NGO to put in one of these expensive reference standard equipment, and let's do co-location studies. Let's work on it to really understand what this data really means. Because at the end of the day, there is no such thing as absolute truth. Even when it comes to reference standard data, there are a lot of deviations, which are, by reference standard, I mean what the government should do as mandated by law. Even that is not 100% accurate. So you have to understand the science, you have to understand the measurement principles, and you have to understand what you're trying to do with that data. So for us, as why we started was, one, to get an idea that, are our cities really polluted? And now that we know they are, how bad are they? And of course, we're learning increasingly from multiple sources of data. Like I said, the low-cost monitor, the government's own data, you have the US embassies in Pakistan doing monitoring, you have satellite data, you have some scientific papers about it. Every single one of them says that our air pollution levels are many, many times above World Health Organization limits, as well as the limits set by our own environmental protection laws. And this data is not just what we know from today. If you look at scientific literature, you can find data going back to the 1990s, which points out to exactly the same thing. So now that we know it's bad, I think then, Davar, maybe you can ask again, what do we need to do to protect ourselves?
Let's come to that at the very end. I wanted to, so you mentioned that there is a chance that monitoring, particularly when you shift to low-cost monitoring, the accuracy might be 90%, 80%. But for our purposes, do you think that for a regular citizen, that error margin is, acceptable? And if it isn't, is there a platform such as PAQI? Is PAQI looking into raising funding for putting up citizen-run reference monitors? Is that something that you might be looking into?
So when you look at the pollution numbers, they're actually converted into what's called the air quality index, which is a conversion of those readings coming from the data. So you're actually, like when you talk about particulate matter, you're actually measuring the amount of these tiny, tiny particles that are in the air. And then you say, okay, the number you put out is that there's so many in 1 cubic meter of air, and you come up with a number. But that number is somewhat meaningless because the measurement for particulate matter will be totally different as compared to, say, for example, for ozone. And the measurement principle and the scale for it, like if a particulate matter concentration of, say, 20 starts becoming bad, if you look at carbon monoxide, a reading of 5 starts to become bad. So, all of these different readings are converted to the air quality index, which is about its impact on your health. And that index is different for different countries because different governments have adopted different scales. You could have a scale from 0 to 10, a scale from 0 to 100, or the scale which is typically more common, which is from 0 to 500. So when you talk about the reading being off, so if it is unhealthy, which ranges from 150 the air quality index scale, then if it's going to be off by 10%, it's still staying within the unhealthy range. So if it's 220 or 240, that doesn't matter so much. Look at what the index is saying. And especially when it comes to hazardous days, when the scale crosses 300, you're seeing in numbers of 300, 400, 600. I mean, those numbers are quite off the chart. So the precautions that you take stay the same, whether the number is 350 or 500 or 1000.
Understood. And say you mentioned, we can come back to the
And
question
that
about
is one of the things that that is one of the things that we need to keep in mind is we've become normalized to seeing unhealthy or very unhealthy air quality levels practically throughout the year, and we don't really think too much about it. But if you were living in the UK or in New York or California, this is the time when people come out on the streets and start protesting, and you might have some people getting fired from the Environmental Protection Department or the Environment Ministry for not doing their job. This is like California wildfire levels are kind of a norm over here. And yes,
yeah.
we are, it's going on to now 6 years of working on this. And I've tried many different approaches in terms of raising funds to get more monitors. And over here, it's very difficult to raise funds locally in Pakistan. And it's, it's very hard to put together the $300-400 worth, which is like roughly 50,000-60,000 rupees. I don't know, with dollar exchange rates, that number has gone up even higher. But imagine if you say I need like 20 lakh rupees or 50 lakh rupees for reference standard equipment. That is a much harder sum to raise. But one day, inshallah, we will get there.
Mm. So we can come back to the question of precautions. I think as someone who has no idea about air quality, doesn't even have access to data, I think people in Pakistan generally understand that there's a season when you have smog, otherwise there's a season when there's dust. So what are the precautions that any layperson can take to safeguard themselves against particulate matter?
So, like, I'd like to expand on that question. So, for example, Abid, we've had like a discussion on about masks as well, and you've pointed out a couple of times the normal surgical masks don't like are not as effective. So, expanding on that question as to what a layperson can do, can you also talk about the masks as well, please?
Mm-hmm. So, you see, like the conversation on masks is maybe similar to what I meant about the data quality and the equipment. Is that how sophisticated do you want to be? How accurate do you want to be? And when it comes to masks, it's about how well you want to protect yourself. So masks are highly recommended when you're outdoors in the environment. When the number crosses 200 or say 250, it depends on your personal threshold. If you're asthmatic or have some other respiratory issue, then you might want to be wearing a mask even when it's say 150. So it's important to know what the different types of masks are. I unfortunately don't have all of them on me. I just have one, but you might have heard of the N95 mask, which is a very commonly known, or also called the KN95 mask. The 95 is the important figure over here, that it's designed to filter out 95% of the particulate matter, which is of the dangerous size for your health. So 95% is what it's designed for if it has a perfect fit and a perfect seal. So in reality, you might be getting 80% protection or 60% protection, depending on how well it fits you. So you also have masks which are called N99. So those block out 99% of this stuff. And then you can also move on to masks which are called elastomeric respirators, which are like these big plastic masks that like you might see, I don't know, like people working with toxic gases and have like a pipe coming out and a breather. Those block out 100% of stuff. So it really depends on how bad the environment is and how sensitive you are. That being said, even surgical masks work, right? Like surgical masks will block out 30% of what's in the air. You could put a handkerchief over your face that could block out about a similar number, maybe 20, 30%. So it depends on what you can afford to get your hands on. Like if you have a dupatta around you, use that. If you can afford the 10 rupee mask. By the way, these masks are expensive because you can only use them a certain number of times and then it's time to get rid of them. I personally wear my N95 mask for about a month at a time and then I throw it away. But N95 masks cost like 300 rupees, right? So that's not easy for everyone to afford and to buy and to keep regularly replacing them. Whereas you can get a hundred surgical masks for 200 rupees. So here's an example, right? So I have a mask which is a bit fancy looking. It's nice and orange. And I was talking to you earlier about forming a good seal. So forming a good seal is important. And I wish I had a surgical mask, but a surgical mask is just a flat sheet. It will not form a seal around your face. And by the seal, I mean, is all of this area needs to be sealed tight. And one way to identify a good mask is that does it have this like foam lining which goes around your nose? And the purpose of the foam is not really to give you comfort, but it's to form a seal. And then you need to have ear straps, which are ideally adjustable, such as this one. So you can tighten or loosen the mask according to your face size. And then most women, for example, over here in Pakistan, our women tend to be petite. They have smaller faces. So a standard size N95 or KN95 mask will not fit them. It'll be too large. And by too large, I mean, is that it'll be like leaking over here, like this area will be like hanging off their chin like this. So all the air is coming in from this side. So that means the mask is not really being that effective. So, I mean, again, it depends on how sensitive you are to these things and how careful you want to be, and what level of protection you want to give yourself. Uh, I was used to wear a mask. I got used to wearing them from living in China. And then every time I'd visit Lahore in the winter months, I'd wear a mask. And now in Karachi, we have pretty bad air pollution every day in the winter months, especially in the evenings, early mornings, throughout the night. So I try to wear a mask. And of course, with Corona virus, like, wearing a mask gives you that extra level of protection. The same filter that keeps out the particulate matter also keeps out virus and bacteria. And if you're in a public space, if you go into a store, if you go into a meeting, why not put on a mask? You carry one in your pocket. It just takes a second. You go do your grocery shopping or you attend your meeting. Don't be a mask Nazi either. Like, it's okay to take it off. You can't give yourself 100% protection after all. Like, I mean, my rule when it comes to Ali's work, I don't wear a mask around people I have lunch with, because, I mean, then you're already in that environment where it'll be exchanging bacteria, because every time your mouth is open, and especially when you're eating, a lot of bacteria is flying out and being exchanged. But other than that, if I meet people occasionally, like, there's always a mask. And so I've heard anecdotally of so many people who said, we always get this seasonal allergies when the pollen, pollen fever, hay fever, these kind of things. And because of Corona, they started wearing a mask year round, and they realized they're not getting the seasonal flu, they're not getting asthma, they're not falling sick as often. So there's, besides protecting yourself from air pollution, you're protecting yourself from a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, that's and related to that, I think possibly I actually have to drop off the call in a bit, but I wanted to hear your thoughts. There's a growing also market of air purifiers in Pakistan, and I'm not sure how much of it is locally produced, but what's the word of air purifiers that you see around? A lot of people also ask me, and I'm like, I'm not the best person to be recommending because I, of course, just read up online reviews, and that's something that everyone can do. But what is something that someone should be doing if they go around looking for an air purifier? What are the two, three key metrics that you would look into and then say, okay, this is the one that I want for my room?
So air purifiers are exactly like masks, actually. It's just a filter with a fan behind and it's pushing the air through. And because they're relatively more complicated, one thing that's important is that you have to make sure that you get an air purifier that is sized appropriately for your room. It's imagine like if you're buying an AC, will you buy a 1 ton AC or a 1.5 ton AC or a half-ton AC? That should do according to your room. If you have a room which is designed, a living room where you might need 2 ton ACs and you put a half-ton AC, it will be putting out cold air, but it won't be cooling down the room. And an air purifier will always give out pure air, but you're not sitting right next to it. You're in the room, and it needs to circulate enough air through it. So roughly, they say 5 air changes an hour, and that brings down the pollution levels. And because again, air purifiers usage for pollution is a relatively new field, there's a lot of misleading claims by big major white label manufacturers. Like I'm talking about some of the biggest, most famous consumer names out there. When you look at their marketing, they will say this air purifier is good for 1,000 square foot room. But once you go into the details and look at some purifiers are rated by an independent verification agency and will say, okay, this one's only for 300 square feet. So you do need to do a bit of research that it's sized appropriately. That being said, any air purifier will work. Doesn't matter what brand. No brand is better than the other. This is more about your preference. Like you choose an AC, do you like a Pell or do you like a Hitachi or a Haier or a Kenwood? You can do the same thing with air purifiers. But if they're not big enough for your room, it will not do the job that you're hoping it will do. A few days ago, just last week, a good friend of mine bought an air purifier, and even a year ago, they asked me, "कि हाँ मुझे air purifier लेना है, कौन सा लूँ?" And I was like, ये वाला लो या ये वाला. And then I remember last 3-4 साल से this conversation has been happening, and just recently, he finally took the plunge and purchased an air purifier. And he said this is the first time that they woke up feeling refreshed. They didn't have a cough in the morning. They didn't have a dry throat. They didn't have a clogged nose. And they were saying that we thought we were falling ill because every day we'd wake up and feel not so good. So just the fact that you can be for about 8-9 hours in your bedroom in a cleaner environment, is cleaner in the sense of the quality of the air you're breathing, makes a big difference in your health. And you've heard of all this medical studies which say there's like just in Karachi, there's a 5-year loss in life expectancy. I think in Lahore now the figure is 8-year loss in life expectancy because of exposure to the poor air. So if you can afford to be in a room with air conditioning, why can't you afford to be in a room with an air purifier, which by the way consumes as much energy as a light bulb? And of course, the rest of the day, as much as you can, wear a mask. All of these things together will make for a healthier life for you. Healthier meaning you'll fall sick less often, you'll feel more energetic, you will have lesser incidences of sore throats and flus and coughs and all of that. So it's a myriad of benefits. And of course, the benefit that you can't really measure is that statistics of the loss in life expectancy. Your life will be healthier for longer. It's like
But
drinking tap water. People don't really drink tap water anymore because there was a time, I mean, people still do boil tap water and kill the bacteria and viruses, but you're not killing the arsenic that our water is known to be heavily polluted with, or the other heavy metals that are out there. So you go for filtered water or RO plants and all of that. So it's the same increasingly and unfortunately with air, that you have to purify this thing around us, which is not very easy to do.
Acha, like I wanted to ask. So you mentioned, of course, air conditioners and using like air humidifiers and masks, etc. But considering the lack of data and the like how do you think we can convince the layperson, or and the layperson also includes the government officials like like even the DCs or the ACs that might like or like other senior bureaucrats as well, that might not have the correct information, or they might not believe the correct information. How do you think we should go about convincing them? Should we have like we have a weather report on or like on the news? Actually, I'm not even sure if we have a weather report properly now, but should we have air quality data, etc., being flashed on the television and on various other spots as well throughout?
I think the awareness comes from a lot of measures. It's of course we should have public, like public access to air quality data. For example, in the newspaper, at least there's still a forecast every day, which shows the temperature and whether rain is forecast. So that forecast needs to include air pollution data. Similarly, it should be part of the news ticker, especially when you have pollution episodes. We need a lot more media and journalists to get involved and start writing about this issue. Though I feel that the conversation has changed, at least in Lahore and in Punjab, where people have come to accept that this is air pollution. Like recently, the education minister in Punjab said that we are not going to extend the school holidays, and there was a major media backlash and also social media backlash where they said, how can we send our children in these polluted levels and extend the school holiday for a longer time so they can stay out of this air and stay a little bit safer. So of course the government did not extend the holidays. That's another story altogether. But in Karachi and in Islamabad and Peshawar and in our other cities, we're not yet convinced that air pollution is even something that we should be concerned about. Like in Karachi, when you speak with people, Ahmed, you and I both live there, it's a non-issue at the moment. And I think by doing what you're doing through the environmental and by others also getting together and talking about it and spreading awareness is the first step. And the second step is, of course, the media in whichever form, in the news ticker or the anchor person talking about it or writing about it. That's where it begins. And this information then percolates upwards to our decision makers, whether it's the environment minister or the prime minister, to start thinking of action. So let's keep talking about issues. Let's keep talking Mahal.
Thank you. Like I like that you have your puns on point throughout the podcast today. Okay, so we normally try to keep the podcast short. So that to cater to like all sorts of audiences. I just wanted to point out over here that I'd like to request our audiences to like and subscribe and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Abid, while this will be my last question, and then we'll close the conversation until next time. So can we through the monitors that you have, can we predict or can we forecast what the air quality will be in the next, say, few hours or in the next week? As like we can forecast weather, especially considering as they're saying that Karachi is going through a cold wave right now. Is there a way to actually forecast like what the air quality would be so that people can pull out their masks accordingly?
Yes, indeed. So forecasts are available for through AirVisual. Those are the monitors that we're using, and through their app and website and other platforms, you can see the air quality forecast. And unfortunately, those are not that accurate for Pakistan because of the lack of historical data for this region. We need a much bigger data set before our forecasts become accurate. But if you're in Beijing or London or some other city, then the forecasts are pretty good. And you can see the forecast up to 2 weeks ahead. But generally speaking, in Pakistan, in the winter months, well, not just the winter months, it's called the smog season for a reason because it goes over multiple seasons, lasts for about 6 months of the year from October till March. You can forecast it right away that the air pollution will be at unhealthy levels all day and will reach hazardous levels during the night. Why during the night is because cold air sinks and that also keeps the air pollution down closer to the ground where we live and breathe. So, I mean, the forecasts are not very good, but you know that air pollution is just going to be really bad. And you can see in all these various apps what it looks like now. And if you see that the air pollution is like at the moment, it's 31 times above safe limits in Karachi, right? So, you can see that it's bad. You can expect it to stay bad for the next 1 or 2 or 3 hours, and then you can plan accordingly. It will only get better if there's a sudden gust of wind coming from somewhere or the wind speed changes. But otherwise, it's bad all around.
Speaking of wind, I think it's the ocean that's been keeping the air, like our air quality low, or like our air quality a bit okayish. Otherwise, if we were more inland, I feel like Karachi's air quality would be much worse than Lahore's, if I'm not mistaken.
So Karachi is very fortunate that in the summer we have the sea breeze, which blows away the pollution, and the wind is very strong. In the winter, you have a land breeze which is not strong enough to blow the emissions away. We're generating the same amount of emissions around here. It's just that they stay concentrated here, and those concentration levels build up to these unsafe levels. And similarly, in Lahore, there's a different phenomena called the temperature inversion that keeps pollution trapped over there.
ठीक है, perfect. Thank you so much, Abid, for all the information. I would ask you to make a prediction as to what the air quality would be like in the next week or so, but I have a feeling it's not going to be safe to breathe either way. So if you have any,
Yeah.
good.
All my friends who go out for their early morning runs, this is the worst time to be running in Karachi in the winter, unfortunately. Do your runs in the daytime when the sun is out, after evening.
Right.
And in fact, if you just step outside your house right now at nighttime and look at the street lights, you will notice fog underneath them. Like you can see the rays of light, and it is foggy, but in that fog is also very toxic stuff, heavy metals, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and then think about what you're breathing.
अच्छा, like I've been saying this is the last question. मैं बात से बात निकलती है. I just wanted to ask. I've been curious. Okay, so I live on the 7th floor, right? Would the air quality be a bit better over there, like during winter, as you said, like cold air sinks, or would it be just as bad as like on the ground floor or on the street?
I think imperceptibly better, not measurably better. Like, yes, it might be a little bit better, but you probably have to cross like 15, 20 stories for it to see a measurable difference. That being said, if you're standing on the side of a street and measure the air pollution versus if you just walk 5 feet away, it's a world of a difference. But if you go upwards, because it's like, I mean, if you're 10 feet up or 20 feet up or 50 feet up, it's not that much different.
Right. Great. Thank you so much, Abid, for your time. This was actually a very informative conversation. And like I hope that a lot more people watch this episode, because you've basically you've shared very simple ways of at least trying to protect ourselves. Like as you said that we cannot be 100% sure or 100% like protect us 100% like 100% of the time. So until next time, inshallah, we will probably bring you on once again in a couple of weeks, or most probably when the weather gets better, I guess, to talk to you about air quality during the summer. Till then, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. If there are any questions or comments, please share. And like I'm like if we see it during our live show, great. If not, then I'll share them with Abid later on, and he could probably still answer, and we'll post it on the comments section. Please like, share, and follow, and keep talking Mahal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Davar. Bye bye.